How's it going, everybody? I had heard good things about the Don't Nod developed action-adventure game Banishers Ghosts of New Eden, so before I jumped into Stellar Blade, I decided to check it out, and I'm so glad that I did. The story follows Antea Duarte and Red McWraith, a couple of paranormal investigators known as Banishers. They travel together from Europe to a cursed colony called New Eden. They discover that an incredibly powerful ghost called the Nightmare is trapping the town in an eternal winter and seek to banish it. Now, this next part is going to sound like a spoiler, but I assure you it is not, as it is integral to the core narrative and gameplay. Okay. Antea is killed early on, but her ghost remains to help Red. Together, they face difficult choices such as banishing ghosts that may or may not be responsible for injustices, aiding spirits that were done wrong with ascending to the afterlife, and sacrificing human lives to resurrect Antea. The latter, Red struggles with due to mourning the loss of his love. The story takes place during the late 17th century in a colony that would become part of the United States of America. People are still getting established in this country, and the settlers of New Eden are having a particularly rough go of it. After the events that take Antea's life, the duo make their way back to New Eden Town through a series of settlements, completing investigations of hauntings, and aiding the townsfolk along the way. By doing so, they chip away at the power of the Nightmare before crossing paths once again. Despite being in the New World, New Eden settlements feel lived in, but still cobbled together. The people are all hanging on by a thread as the Nightmare has plagued the colony for some time. Don't Nod paints a picture that is near hopeless, and that sense permeates throughout the story. However, the pacing allowed me to at times lose sight of the final destination. I would imagine mainlining the story quests would remedy that, but that was not my experience. I didn't complete all the side content, but I did most of it. I feel like Banishers Ghosts of New Eden overstays its welcome a bit if you're a completionist. Now, when it comes to gameplay, Banishers asks the player to make their way back to New Eden Town while investigating hauntings, fighting ghosts and possessed organic material, solving light puzzles, and completing side quests for the townsfolk you meet along the way. You mainly play as Red, but can switch to Antea with a button press, and doing so allows you to see what the human eye cannot. You can clear pathways, find secret collectibles, and resources. Oh, and traverse to areas previously unreachable. Additionally, there are rituals that you can perform to summon spirits, travel between dimensions, and launch replayable enemy encounters. The main quests guide you from settlement to settlement through what feels like a wide linear experience that's technically open world. If you've played God of War 2018, then you know what I mean by that, but if you haven't, think of an open world, but there are deliberate paths to get to the locations in the world instead of being able to walk through the woods to take shortcuts and stuff like that. Once you've made it to a settlement, side missions called haunting cases will start populating, and completing those will award you with essence that can be used to evolve Antea's spectral abilities. Completing main missions and side activities will award experience, and leveling up will grant skill points that can be used to evolve Red's combat abilities. The missions felt reminiscent of The Witcher 3's missions, especially when completing a haunting case. The dialogue options and how certain choices can have implications for how the story plays out felt impactful. The haunting cases were my absolute favorite aspect of the game, and there are plenty of them, which is fantastic. Banishers is a third-person, over-the-shoulder action-adventure game that plays very similarly to God of War 2018. The sword functions as the axe's close-quarter combat, the rifle functions as the axe throwing, without the whole return mechanic, of course, and the torch functions as the... Well, I don't know why the torch is there, to be honest. Maybe for parrying and blocking, I'm not sure. But what I'm trying to say is that Banishers mimics the God of War 2018 combat quite well and feels very similar. As I evolved my abilities, I started to really find my groove with swapping between Red and Antea to take advantage of enemy weaknesses, and had a ton of fun in general with enemy encounters. The boss fights were challenging, but not frustrating, which was a huge bonus for me. I wasn't the biggest fan of the menus in Banishers. Primarily, they're simple, but oddly still frustrating to navigate. The whole Destiny cursor thing is always annoying to me because I primarily play on console. However, there's just a lot of resources and crafting materials that felt completely needless. Also, the map didn't feel snappy enough, but was otherwise simple enough to use. I did like reviewing haunting cases, but never really needed to unless I wanted to ensure I was deciding the fate of a ghost or person for the reasons I felt were just. Then there's the skill tree panel, but you're not able to evolve your abilities away from a campfire. Visiting a campfire not only allows for ability evolutions, but also equipment upgrades, fast traveling, and resting to replenish health potions, very similarly to a Dark Souls game. Personally, I didn't enjoy the light RPG mechanics in Banishers. The skill tree was fine and those evolutions were fun to mess around with, but changing equipment and upgrading them with resources that I found felt unnecessary. By the end of the game, I think I still had the same equipment on, just upgraded as far as I could, because why wouldn't I? In terms of the visuals and audio, Banishers is a beautiful game. Don't Nod meticulously detailed every section of New Eden. The foliage is dense, the settlements have their own character to them, every structure is adorned in the belongings of whoever lives or lived there. There are definitely some performance issues. Certain highly populated settlements experience stuttering frame rates, especially with weather effects active. I played the game on performance mode with motion blur turned off, which I believe to be an unlocked frame rate that's aiming to achieve 60 frames per second. I did try playing on quality mode, but the cat's out of the bag on 30 FPS and there's no going back for me. I will say that I got used to the performance issues, and there was an update during my playthrough that seems to stabilize the issue a bit, but still not completely. Unfortunately, the soundtrack is nothing to write home about, but I believe it serves its purpose by enriching the experience without pulling attention, which isn't a bad thing. However, I couldn't hum you a single second of any song in this game. It's truly unremarkable. That aside, the sound design is quite strong. I played with headphones quite a bit and the directional audio worked noticeably well. There's nice little touches too that I appreciated, like the sound of a big church bell ringing when triggering Antea's special ability that's unlocked later in the game. And the voice acting is incredible. Red and Antea are characters that I think I will remember for some time, and that comes down to the way that these characters are acted. It's such an emotional game, and it would have suffered if these performances weren't of a certain caliber. Even the secondary and tertiary characters give impressive performances, and I can't praise them enough. Overall, Banishers Ghosts of New Eden is a standout game for 2024. I think it's a game that when I look back at this generation in gaming, I'll remember fondly, and that comes down to the compelling setting, story, and incredibly well-acted characters being paired with inspired gameplay mechanics that mimic their inspirations greatly. It's not without its faults, but it is truly a great game that I would recommend to anyone looking for a sizable single-player game with lots to do. If I had to give Banishers a score, I would say 4 out of 5 feels fair. It's way above average, but still has a couple of shortcomings that drag down what is otherwise a really great experience. I would recommend it to anybody that has a PS5 that enjoys single-player games. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you enjoy content like this, please like and subscribe. It truly does help support the channel. I also record a bi-weekly gaming podcast with my buddy Evan called Save Scummers that you might enjoy, so please check it out. You can find it on your podcast service of choice. That's it for now, but until next time, lead with love and stay hydrated.